Hey Flower Tribe, it's Kelly Lehman and Lucy Lehman, and today I want to show you how I keep a lot of effortless blooms in my low-maintenance flower garden. So we've got a load of blooms back here, and it was really important to me when I actually planted this that it was a bunch of low-maintenance flowers, and I'll show you exactly how I planned this out. If we haven't met yet, it's nice to meet you. My name is Kelly Lehman. I'm the owner of Cranberry Fields Flower Farm here in Cranberry, New Jersey. And I love giving you guys fun, free flower tips. So please feel free to subscribe to this YouTube channel and hit that bell notification so you know whenever I post another fun, free flower tip video. So let's dive right in. So when I planned out this garden years and years and years ago, a lot of these flowers were not here at the time. And I didn't take the extra step of finding out the plants that thrive in this area. So I made a lot of mistakes. I put a lot of plants back here that did not thrive. And I had to wind up, learning the hard way that there are certain plants that just thrive in your areas and other ones that do not do well. So after many years of trial and error, I learned to, look online. Like I took a look at New Jersey planting hardiness zone 6, which is where we are right now. And, I would Google plants that thrive in this area. And I also wound up taking a look at the space and the sunlight that this gets. So I know that this garden back here gets at least 8 hours of direct morning sunlight, and then later on it has some shade. So what I did was I would go to my local nurseries. I would talk to the people there. Talk to the people at your local nurseries. It's really, really important that you talk to them because they're going to tell you like the easiest no-fuss flowers that grow in your area. And once I started getting to know, some of these people, well, they would tell me this is like a no-brainer to plant in your garden here. And I found out about certain plants like these that are low-maintenance, low-fuss flowers. So for my neck of the woods, I realized that black-eyed Susans are drought-tolerant. I didn't have to worry too much about the water requirements, especially because I don't have a great irrigation system back here. I also found out that big, giant, plants and shrubs like limelight hydrangeas, once they're established back here, they're literally like no fuss. Same thing. This one's pretty drought tolerant. I don't have any kind of formal watering back here. I don't have, fancy irrigation systems. So all these plants back here thrive basically on their own once they were established. Now, the first 2 years that you get any plant in the ground, you really have to make sure that they don't dry out because their root systems aren't established yet. But you want the plants that are going to be hardy once they're established. And the same thing with this Rose of Sharon. So I have a gorgeous Rose of Sharon here. And once again, I made sure that this plant got enough water the first 2 years. I don't do any kind of pruning for any of these plants that I just showed you. This limelight hydrangea, I don't prune back. The one next to it is just like a mini version. It's also a limelight hydrangea. It's younger. I shouldn't say it's a mini version. It's just a younger limelight hydrangea. And the same thing with these black-eyed Susans. I don't prune back any of these. So they basically come up year after year. I like to make sure that I plant a lot of perennials. Perennials are the flowers that come back year after year. And, you don't have to worry about planting them over and over again. I also want to make sure that I have a smart layout and design. So I like the idea of grouping plants that have similar light requirements, similar water requirements, and I kind of group them in spots that, where they're thriving together. So, for example, like these black-eyed Susans.
I planted them near my limelight hydrangea because both of these enjoy full sunlight. So they were a good combination. They're also both drought tolerant, so they were good plants to put together. My mophead hydrangeas love to have morning sun and afternoon shade to thrive. So I wound up putting them in a spot that gets some afternoon shade. And so that's what this part of the garden looks like.
The majority of those flowers reseeded themselves. And you can tell, look, there's no weeds in the garden because there's no place for the weeds to pop up because it's just packed with flowers. So these black-eyed Susans are going to wind up getting beautiful, ripe seeds inside of them around fall. These petals are going to fall off of them. They're going to look a little bit scary, but that's okay. I still won't deadhead them because I know that each of these is going to wind up giving me seeds that are going to fall to the ground. And then this flower bed is just going to spread with more and more of these black-eyed Susans. And the same thing will happen with mint. I know a lot of people will do that if they have a big space in their garden for mint, but know that mint can actually take over a garden. So you might want to actually plant your mint in containers and just kind of like plant them like, like in the dirt so you can lift them out at the end of the season, because they will literally take over your entire garden, because mint is like a really profuse reseeder. Another terrific reseeder is echinacea. So this flower will do the same thing as the black-eyed Susans. These are going to wind up being gorgeous, beautiful seeds in the fall. So I don't cut them back, and these seeds are going to wind up dropping to the ground, and it's going to wind up spreading, and it's going to give me gorgeous, beautiful flowers. More plants that will wind up taking over your garden so that you don't have to worry about the weeds are plants like Rose of Sharon. So I planted this one years and years ago, and now I've got many of them growing all over the place. They wind up replanting themselves. They wind up spreading out all through the garden. And so this will also take over your garden. So it's called Rose of Sharon. And I also want you to notice this crepe myrtle that I have in the back. This was a tiny little shrub tree, I don't know, maybe like probably about 10, 12 years ago. And it has since taken over like a huge space in that back garden. And once again, if that plant is there and the limelight hydrangeas that are next to it, keep getting bigger, I've got some mophead hydrangeas in front of it. Any place where you see those plants, I know that weeds can't grow because there's already something in its space. So know that this garden did not look like this, in the beginning. Everything was spaced out a lot more because I knew that they were going to get mature. So I did have a lot of weeds in the beginning, but eventually when the plants start taking over, you start seeing less weeds, and then it's a really super low maintenance garden to take care of. And I just wanted to show you one of these butterflies that popped back over here on this butterfly plant. This is a beautiful plant in the springtime, and this is milkweed. It is also the host plant for monarch butterflies. So if you put milkweed in your garden, you're going to have beautiful monarch butterflies, and this plant loves to reseed itself. And this is what this looks like. So this is a seed pod that it basically looks like it explodes. And when it explodes, each of these looks like a little fairy, like a little fairy parachute. At the bottom of each of these fuzzy little gorgeous parachutes is a seed. And what happens is they drop to the ground and they'll reseed themselves all over my garden. And so this is also a great way to not have weeds. When you encourage the reseeders to keep reseeding themselves, we're going to have more and more and more of this milkweed planting itself each year, spreading out all over the garden. And the more plants that I have in this compact space, the less weeds I'm going to have. So a great way to encourage weed suppression is to kind of fill up that space with desirable plant or fly bush right now. And sure enough, there's a butterfly on it. There usually are butterflies on this plant all summer long, especially in the summers, especially on summer days. But it's really important for me to continue to deadhead this plant. Otherwise, I'm not going to get those beautiful fresh blooms that you see the butterfly, kind of feeding off of right now. So when I deadhead my butterfly bush, it looks something like this. So these blooms are, pretty much spent right now. They're pretty crispy. That beautiful purple color is gone. And I know that if I don't start pruning this now, it's going to wind up going to seed. And that is a signal to the plant to stop flowering. It kind of says, all right, the season's over. So to keep that plant with beautiful, beautiful blooms, like you're seeing right now, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to give it a deadheading. I'm going to go to, once again, a fresh set of leaves, and I'm going to just give it a clip. I always cut right above a fresh set of leaves, and I'll try to show you what that looks like down here. So this is a bloom that's pretty much spent. I'm going to go down on the stem, and I'm going to cut right above a fresh set of leaves, and I'm hoping to get more blooms out of this stem within the next few weeks. And this plant should bloom all the way through that first frost, which is maybe 2 months from now. So deadheading is a really great way to keep your blooms blooming all summer long. But some of the plants that I don't like to deadhead are things like my reseeders. And over here where we have a little more shade where not all the flowers are growing, I have a lot of mulch. So if you can add a lot of mulch to your gardens, maybe I think usually about 2 or 3 inches of mulch is a good idea. That also suppresses the weeds. So guys, when you put mulch in your garden, you want to make sure that you don't bump up that mulch against the base of the plant. And what I mean by that is this. You don't want to come in here and have a big mound of mulch against the stems of your plant, because that's going to stop the airflow. And most plants like to have a lot of airflow around their stems. So what I'll do is I'll kind of pull back some of that mulch, give it like a little bit of a circle around the base. And this way, this mulch is going to, number one, cut back on the weeds. It's going to suppress the weeds and not let them grow. And it's also going to keep that moisture in the ground so that the plant can thrive. So mulching is a really good idea. My next tip is to make sure that you have efficient watering techniques. So I like to water my garden in the mornings. I also make sure that I water most of them at the base of the plant, because a lot of times when you do overhead watering, you get some of these leaves super, super wet if you water them in the afternoon. And then if temperatures drop, a lot of times you get like those brown spots on some of your hydrangeas, and you might get some fungal issues. So I like to water my garden in the morning. I like to water at the base of my plant.
Another great watering tip I have for you is that when you're planning out a whole bunch of plants together, like a hedgerow of these Annabelle hydrangeas, I wound up using a soaker hose, and I just wrapped the soaker hose around the base of each of the plants, and then it slowly drips water out onto the plant. And this is a terrific way to water them, especially for the first 2 years as their roots are getting established.
Now, these are all established hydrangeas, and they're fine to get water on their own. All of their watering is from Mother Nature, and I don't think I've watered this row by hand probably in like 7 or 8 years. So this doesn't mean that you don't have to. I mean, you might have a really, really bad drought in your area, and then you wouldn't have to come out here and do that. But this has been a super low maintenance hedgerow for me, and it comes back year after year. I also found that it's very helpful to do some pruning and deadheading to make your blooms last all season. So this is an example of what my knockout roses look like that I did not deadhead. So here it is, like the end of August. I already had some beautiful blooms on all these, and I didn't take the extra time to kind of clean up this bed. I didn't take the extra time to deadhead them and prune them back to get a second flush of flowers. But I want to show you my rose garden, and I want to show you the roses that we did prune back and that we did deadhead. It's unbelievable. So we'll take a walk over here. Come on, Luce. So here's the rose garden that I have back here. I planted this in memory of my mom. A lot of the roses back here are from Proven Winners. So thank you, Proven Winners, for sponsoring my mom's beautiful rose garden. And I want to show you the difference. So back here, you can tell these roses are coming up super strong. They've been blooming all summer long. And that's because we have been deadheading them, and we've been pruning them back when they got, a little bit spent. And so, looks really lush, really healthy. So taking those extra steps to kind of just prune them back and give a deadheading makes a huge difference. And when I deadhead them, what I'll do is I'll show you what I do over here right now. When I give a deadheading, I'm just taking a look at the blooms that are spent. And what I'll do is I'll come down to a fresh set of leaves that look really healthy. This one's got some spots on it, so I'm going to bypass it. And I'm going to go to the next set of leaves. And usually I look for ones that have like 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I cut right above that leaf. And this is going to encourage more roses to come out before the end of the season. And while I'm down here, I'm looking at more. And I'm just going to kind of cut away. Now, this plant really, can use like a little bit of a heavier pruning than just the deadheading. So I'll probably come in here and I'll maybe cut off maybe like a third of the plant because I see it can use that extra recharge right now. But I don't want to do this anytime past mid-August because I don't want to give this plant a recharge so much that it starts to like really bloom out as it goes dormant in September. So I think like the latest I would do this is maybe like mid-August. And that just means I'm going to take about a third of the plant off, especially getting rid of a lot of these like yellowy leaves, a lot of the leaves that look like they're a little bit diseased. So I'm going to cut a lot of those right out. And then the leaves that are left behind and the plant that's left behind is going to give me another flush of flowers, similar to what these guys look like. And then we have dinner parties out here too. I'll have like a little chandelier, some candles, and we'll have music out here. We'll put, once again, some fresh flowers to give it a little burst of color. And so this is some of the hardscaping that we have back here. And I'll walk you through another spot. I've got little points of interest mixed within the garden. So eventually I wanted to have something climbing up over this metal piece. And then as you walk through this garden here, I like to have little meandering paths. And then here's another one of those wrought iron gates that I told you about. I have to fix that light. Some beautiful shrub roses coming up all around it. And this is just another point of interest for the garden. And as you walk right through, once again, I like a surprise when you walk through. So it's nice to see this cute little planter here. And yeah, so it's fun to have some of these little hardscaping elements going on back here. And I'll just show you some of the back garden while we're here anyway, just in case you want to see more of that crepe myrtle. But once again, guys, this used to be a bed that used to make me crazy. I was out here weeding it constantly, hours and hours and hours. But now that it's mature, as you can tell, there's hardly any space for weeds to grow. And the space where they can grow is in shade, so they don't grow as fast. So if you can kind of, picture what your garden's going to look like a few years from now as a mature garden, know that a lot of that weeding is that time that you're weeding is going to be cut down tremendously once it's a mature garden. And the same thing back here. No space for weeds. It's actually called a Chinese snowball plant or Chinese viburnum. And this is one of my first bloomers in the spring. And what I love about this is that there's a continual burst of blooms back here. So right now I've got my summer blooms coming in. They're all in full force. But way back in the beginning of spring, I had flowers like my daffodils and this Chinese snowball plant. And I had a whole bunch of hellebores that came in. And so there's constantly different bursts of blooms coming here and different seasons. And we also had a whole bunch of peony plants that were in full bloom now. And so the peony plant looks like this now, but way back in its day, it was in full bloom and it gave this back garden like a huge pop of color. And so that's it, guys. And of course, here's Lucy.
Thank you so much for joining us in this video, and please say hi to us over on my Cranberry Fields Instagram page. You can also find us on TikTok, and I made a whole bunch of podcasts for you. You can find those wherever you listen to your podcast, and know that I made a whole bunch of online flower courses for you with easy to follow tips on how to grow beautiful flowers just like these in your own gardens. I will put all of those in descriptions below. And please also let me know where you're viewing this from in this great, big, beautiful world. I love to see how our flower tribe is growing around the globe each week. Also check out our Kelly Lehman's Flower Tribe Facebook group because there's thousands of gardeners from all over the world and they're asking and answering loads of garden questions over there. And know that YouTube has allowed me to have a super thanks button attached to this channel. And if you'd like to buy us a cup of coffee or let us know if you appreciate these videos, that would be terrific. Or you could just give us a like or a comment below. I would appreciate that. And I will see you guys in the next video.